Hey folks, welcome back. So today I want to show you something that you probably haven't done in Serum yet. And it's maybe because there are no tutorials about this on YouTube. Maybe it's too complicated, but I want to show you this and I keep it really simple so you get the idea how it works. And it works in Serum 1 and also in Serum 2. So you can use one of them. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So you probably already know that we have here an empty table and we can edit this table by just clicking here this edit button. And then inside of the wavetable editor, you can change here the partials and you can also draw in here stuff to create waveforms. We already know this, right? So let's reset this. And we can also type in here a formula, and I want to focus on this and give you an idea how this works. And I try to keep it as simple as possible so you get the idea how it works and you can make it complicated later on, right? We start simple and then make it complicated. This is how you learn, right? So there's also here some kind of presets you can use, but that's not what we want to do. We want to type in our own formulas. And to get a hint of what we can do, we have to go to the manual. So read the manual, and you probably already read it. I know it. We all read manuals, right? So there's a section down here, 15 formula parser, type some math, make a sound, and then all kinds of different variables and functions and so on, a lot of stuff. And I don't want to explain everything. I just want to give you a starting point here. So we want to focus on V and X for a moment here. So V is a variable, and this is the current time value getting plotted from 0 to 1. And X is the current time value getting plotted from -1 to +1. So the range is different, but it's the same thing. It's just different values for the same things. So here in the editor, we can type in just X, and this gives you a saw wave. So the question now is, why does it give us a saw wave? And it's pretty simple. The parser, or the processing here, is always working from the left side to the right side. It iterates over each position and gives each position a different value. Okay, so here the position from top to bottom is the value of -1. So position -1. And this is position 0. Okay, and this is position +1 if you use X. If you use V, this is value or position 0, and this is position 0.5, and this is position 1. Okay, so X gives you position -1, 0, +1. Okay, so why does it give us now here some kind of saw? It's pretty simple. So position -1 gives it the value of -1, because this is position -1. So X is the position, give position -1 value of -1, which is down here, right? So down here is -1, this is +1. So all we do now is map the position to a value, right? So position -1 gets value -1, position 0 gets value 0, position +1 gives you value 1. Pretty easy. So this also means we can type in here multiply by -1, which is just reversing, right? If you just take -1 and multiply it by -1, we get +1. And if you take 0 and multiply it by -1, we get 0. And if you take +1 and multiply it by -1, we get -1. So we have now here exactly the opposite. So we map the opposite to the opposite, more or less. It gives you also a saw, just a reversed saw. We can also offset this. We can also say -1, so it looks like this. We can say plus 0.5, so we offset to the right side. This doesn't work because there's a minus here. So it gives you something like this. So we can do all kinds of different things. We can also multiply by a random value, rand, it gives you something like this, right? -1 gets a random value, and here we have nothing because this is 0. So 0 multiplied by a random value is 0. So it's always no value here, right? We can also see this in here. There is a pi we can use. There are also some functions here, rand, that's what I used here. A random number from -1 to +1, right? So that's why it looks like this, because it's just a random value we mapped to this position. So this is how it works inside of this waveform editor here. It works always from the left to the right. So you can type in all kinds of formulas there, but I want to focus actually on this on top here, on the bins. We can also automate this or use math to change how this looks like here at the top. So let's go back here to init. So to make this work, we have to use Q inside of the formula, and you can see this also here, Q. When a Q is preset, or it's probably, they mean present here, when a Q is present in the formula, the function plots to the FFT bins instead of plotting to the waveform display. Q iterates from 1 to 512 for the respective harmonic bins. So here it's the same thing. If we type something in here and we use Q in the formula, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and so on. It always starts here and then iterate from the left to the right side. So we can say, or we can actually type in here a condition. We can say Q smaller than 10, which means this parenthesis here gives you a true or a false. If it's below 10, if Q is below 10, then this gives you a true, which is 1. And if it's above 10, then it gives you a false, which is 0. So this equation here, or this result, gives you either 1 or 0. And then we multiply this by a random value. And it looks like this. So we have only the first 9 bins here modulated or randomized, more or less. And we can also just leave this out. So we can randomize everything. So rand, and we multiply this by Q divided by Q, because this gives you always 1. So we have to include a Q to make it work on top here, but you also have to do some kind of math operation. So the math operation that gives you kind of nothing is Q divided by Q, because here bin 1 divided by bin 1 is 1. The 2 divided by 2 is also 1. So it gives you always a 1. So we randomize each partial. I don't know how many partials there are, 512. So it gives you something like this. And some of these partials have here 0 in there, because random is always between -1 and +1. So sometimes you get -0.5, -0.3, and so on. So you have a lot of partials in here that are below 0. So they are 0. So what we can do is we can use here a method, absolute value. And all this method does is it's taking negative values and puts it into a positive range. So -1 becomes +1, -0.3 becomes +0.3, right? So with this, we should land more often inside of the positive range. So let's do something like this, right? So now you can see we have much more partials here getting values that are in a positive range, but still nothing you want to use. It actually sounds like something. Okay, so there's a partial in here at some point with a pretty big value. Anyway, so this is cool, but it's better to actually limit yourself to the first few partials, minus, I don't know, 20 maybe, right? Only randomize here from 0 or 1 to 19, and then it gives you much more pleasant or interesting sounds. Can I repeat this? No, I have to change the parser here. Oh, that's wrong. 10. So you can create random sounds here with this pretty easily. This is a condition, pretty easy, and gives you 0 or 1. 1 when it's below 10, 0 when it's above 10, multiplied by your absolute random value, right? So each partial gets then a random value. And then we multiply here by Q divided by Q, just to have Q in the equation to make it actually work on top or in the top harmonic table instead of this wave editor here. So that's why we use this. Another thing we can do is instead of this abs rand, or maybe we keep this abs rand, we can also include here another thing. Let me go back in here. Where is it? So we have here Q, and we also have, oh yeah, Z and Y. That's the thing. So that's the current table number, and this is also from 0 to 1, and Z is from -1 to +1. So this represents actually the tables in here. So at the moment we just generate one frame, but we can also generate multiple frames. So this is then represented by Z and Y. So we can use maybe Y in here. We have to multiply it by something, so we can just do something like this. So table 1, right? So we have a random value here, and this random value then is multiplied by 0 here. Here it's multiplied by 1. Here it's multiplied by 2. Here it's multiplied by 3, and so on. So each table frame is a number here, and we multiply this. And I guess we can also, if we don't want to do this, we can just divide this by Y. So we get a 1 each time. Hit this. And it takes a while, and then we generate here multiple tables. And you can see all of these tables are the same. The reason for that is because of random. So let's go back to random here. It says a random number from -1 to +1 stays the same for all tables because it's pre-calculated for every time position. Which means random is the same for each table, but there is another function here that's not in the manual for some reason. It's called RRND, so it's R random or something like this. So this is a random value, it's the same as random, but it's recalculated for each frame. So we type this in, and then you can see each table is now slightly different. And you can see all the values here are kind of randomized, but it stays below 10. So this was the postman on the door. Anyway, so we have now here random values, but there's a problem here in my opinion. You can see it's too much random here. Too much randomness. What I want to have is I want to have higher values for the low partials and lower values for the top partials. That's usually how the sounds are. So we can build this in here. We can multiply this by, let's say, multiply also in here. So the Q, or let's actually just divide this by Q. Which means each partial here, so we have a random value, right? And then partial 5 here we have a random value, and this is then divided by 5, this is divided by 6, this is divided by 7. So it should be the case that each partial gets lower the higher you go in the harmonics. So let's try this out. Maybe make a space in here. So this looks much better, right? You can see a high partial and then it gets lower over time. Let's see how this looks like. Okay, maybe use more partials. Let's use 20 and generate this again. This kind of looks interesting. So maybe you can lower this value here. So the Q is basically too much. So it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. So we can multiply this by 0.5 or something like this to scale it, to make this value a bit smaller. Let's see how this looks like. Maybe a bit better. So we get also random sounds here. So what I usually do then to create something more interesting out of this is I go to add remove and say reduce to, let's say 16 tables, right? So you just select the first 16 tables and you remove all the rest. So we do this. You can see we have 16 tables here. And then we just maybe select everything. I don't think you need to select everything actually. And then I say morph spectral. And it gives Serum the information that you want to morph spectrally from one table to the other. Maybe you can also do this here, 0 all phases. Yeah, maybe this. Okay. So then there's here something in between that's maybe not interesting. I should remove this. Remove current index. Yeah, that's what I need. Again, process. Something like this. So now we have here 256 tables, but you can morph between them. And this is how you can create random wave tables that have multiple different entries and just with some kind of simple math. I'll probably write all of this here in the description below and a small description why I typed it in, or maybe even write it on my website and make more explanations what does what and why. But the main idea, what you need to get, is that this parser always iterates from the left side to the right side, and if you put Q in there, it iterates from the left bin to the right bin here, and you can use all kinds of math in here to modify the value. And you use more or less the positions like X or Q, which is the bin number, and multiply this to actually scale these values. So this is the idea behind it. I want to show you this actually, so maybe you can try it out. Type in these examples here for yourself and experiment with this. And as you can see, you can create so many wavetables just with randomization and typing in here some random math equations and play around with this. Maybe you get something interesting. Maybe you can put it in the comments down below if you want to. And yeah, I want to basically give you a starting point and maybe something that you can use to get more out of Serum. And like I said, this also works here in the new Serum. Let's type this in. It gives you more or less the same. I think that's basically the same editor. Like in here, it's just a different GUI layout or skin or whatever. It kind of works in the same way. And then if you want to use this in Bitwig, all you have to do is here export as 16-bit wave. That's what I do most of the times, and then you can drag it into Polymer or any other wavetable synthesizer. Kind of neat and interesting. So that's it for this video. Read the manual and leave a like, leave a subscription, and let me know in the comments down below what you do, or if you use this, or how you use it, or what kind of formulas you come up with. Okay, thanks for watching, and I see you tomorrow at Super Booth. Bye.